Manisha, I wanted to ask you, in 2020, we're seeing this intersection of Black Americans and South Asian Americans in our diaspora, certainly being played out very prominently today, especially with the nomination of Senator Kamala Harris on the Democratic ticket. But are there touch points for this that have resonated from a historical perspective that go deeper than just the nomination of Senator Harris?
Yes, I think so. A lot of people are not aware of the fact that there have been intersections between Indian Americans and the African American community that go way back to the 18th century. So when I was doing research for my last book, which is a big history of abolition, the abolition of slavery from the American Revolution to the Civil War, I found that there were actually Indian Lascars, as they were called. They were mainly from Bengal, Indian sailors who would end up in ports in New York or in Boston. And many times they'd be enslaved, like African Americans. And the abolition societies that existed then, one of them was the New York Manumission Society, which Alexander Hamilton, by the way, those of you who might have seen Hamilton, belonged to. They fought these cases, and that case just jumped out at me when I was reading the minutes of the New York Manumission Society. And being Indian American, I was noticing things that most American historians have probably ignored.
Right.
I also came across a Black abolitionist family, the DeGrasse family. They descended from an Indian woman and a Frenchman. And in fact, they were the first Black doctors. I mean, I guess the Indian genes were working then too.
Right.
I mean, I don't know what it is, but John DeGrasse became the first Black doctor in the United States, and the DeGrasse family was known to have descended from what they call, quote, a Hindu woman. So there were many such instances of intermixture. There were Indians, people of Indian descent who fought in the Civil War in the United States colored regiment. So, as a Civil War specialist, as a person who studies slavery and abolition, all this jumped out at me. So there's a long history of interconnection. There's also a connection with abolitionists who were fighting for Black rights here, both Black and white, men and women, who were critics of British imperialism in India in the mid-19th century. So for instance, the Great Revolt of 1857, that was described as, an example of native, quote, barbarism and cruelty towards the British, and was actually rather brutally suppressed by the British. Most American abolitionists looking at it said, wait a minute, this is exactly the way slaveholders talk about slave rebellions.
Right.
So I just kept coming across all these things. I found an anti-slavery bazaar in Boston that was selling the locks of hair of Raja Ram Mohan Roy, the Soviet reformer and Indian nationalist, the way they sold locks of hair of British abolitionists, like Wilberforce. So that again jumped out at me. I found references to Rabindranath Tagore's father, Dwarkanath Tagore. I found him addressing meetings of abolitionists and anti-slavery societies. So all this, which most American historians ignored, meant a great deal to me. And I included it in my book in a chapter called The Abolitionist International. So these interconnections between Indian and African American communities actually go way back, and a lot of it we are not aware of. In the 20th century, of course, the story is better known. Certainly in California, the large Punjabi immigration, to California and Canada, or the immigration of indentured labor from India to Guyana and the Caribbean. Those stories are better known now. There's another very good book called Bengali Harlem that looks at Bengalis who settled out and intermarried with the Black community in Harlem. They were mainly tradesmen, shopkeepers. So there are all these stories that we are uncovering now of the South Asian presence in the United States that goes much further back than the recent immigration.